These data centers are getting really big. Gigawatt-sized data centers are becoming the new normal. A quick note. My company, CleanView, recently built a data center tracker. I've been following the development of AI and data centers closely for much of the last few years. And even I've been shocked by what I've learned in building this product. Today I'm publishing the first story that uses our data center tracker. If you wanted to use the platform, you can sign up for CleanView here. There's been a lot written about the AI investment and its impact in the last year, but somehow I think that most people still underestimate the scale of the current data center build-up that's happening across the United States. Since the launch of the ChatGPT in November 2022, tech companies have spent huge sums of money building data centers. In just 3 years, spending on the data centers in the US has gone from $13.8 billion to $41.2 billion per year, an increase of 200. This has come at a time when virtually all other construction activity in the country has slowed. America's data center spending spree. I have been skeptical of the AI power demand story at times, but in the years since I first started writing about it, many AI infrastructure projects have gone from the realm of press releases to actual operating projects, and they've done it at breakneck speed. OpenAI Stargate Data Center in Abilene, Texas is one such project. Just over a year ago, the project developer had nothing more than some permits and a few hundred acres of dirt in West Texas. Today there are 100,000 of Nvidia's most advanced chips consuming 200 megawatts of power in the project's first two buildings. Over the next year, the developer plans to build another 6 buildings, bringing the site total power consumption to 1.2 gigawatt. OpenAI Stargate project in 2024 versus 2025. It's hard to really put the scale of this project in perspective. One way to do it is to look at the project from space. The satellite image below shows Stargate first two buildings. Each of those tiny little dots in the top left and top right are construction workers' cars. There are about 6,000 of them shuttling workers to the site each day. Another way to understand the scale of the project is to compare the 1.2 gigawatt of peak demand of the facility. We'll use to that of one of the nearest utilities. El Paso Electric, a utility that served 465,000 customers west of the project, has a peak system load of 2.4 gigawatt. OpenAI Stargate project seen from space. Stargate is the only gigawatt scale project progressing quickly in the US either. This summer, Amazon launched the first phase of its own mega data center in Indiana, claiming to be the world's largest for now. The company says it has reserved all of the power for its partner Anthropic to train the clouding model. So Amazon's new data center in Indiana went up as quickly as Stargate. In early 2024, the site was nothing more than corn or soybean farms. Today, the first even building are consuming about 525 megawatt of power. Over time, Amazon plans to build 23 more buildings, bringing the total power consumption to 2.2 gigawatt. Each year, the single core supercomputing cluster could consume as much electricity as half of all homes in Indiana, according to the one estimate. When the site's 30 buildings are complete, the total 6.9 billion square feet of the floor space will be 2.5 times larger than that of the Empire State Building. Amazon's new Carlisle, Indiana data center. Microsoft recently announced the first phase of a gigascale data center in Wisconsin. The site will eventually consume about 1.5 gigawatt of power, according to the documents from the recent grid operator MISO. Across its global footprint, Microsoft built 2 gigawatts of data centers over the last year. Still, the company's executives say it hasn't been enough. In investor earnings call, they said that they have had to turn away customers due to a lack of power capacity. For years, Google has been building a cluster of closely connected to data centers on the border of Nebraska and Iowa. A collection of 4 different sites with 100 miles of each other will soon have about 1 gigawatt of power between them all, which will be used to train the company Gemini model. The Elon Musk XAI fiercely dodged environmental regulations when they building broadened mobile natural gas generator to build the first phase of the gigawatt scale data center in Tennessee. When regulators caught wind of the move progress at the project and permit approval from the second building slowed. So Musk bought a power plant just over the border in Mississippi where regulators say they delay enforcement of the air pollution laws for a year. The second phase of the project could consume as much as 1.5 gigawatt of power. Planned and operating data centers. But for each tech giant, and none of this is happening fast enough. In the current era of AI, the quality of a model is determined primarily by the computing power. This is called the scaling laws, are the reason why the Nvidia went from being a relatively known chip maker to the world's most valuable company in record time, through more chips and a power at your time, and it performs better on benchmark tests. When tech CEOs are very are at fancy dinners with the president or give TV interviews, they tend to talk about all this as a race against China, but they are really all in a race with each other to build the best model so that everyone switches over to it and their stock price goes up. The problem with that is race is to become the first $5 trillion company requires physical infrastructures and building the stuff in the real world takes a long time. If more challenging the scaling laws are the logarithmic, each meaningful step forward in terms of model quality requires 10 times more than compute and power. ChatGPT 3 was trained with less than the 1 megawatt of power. Grok 3, the most advanced model released this year, as measured by the industry favored benchmarks, used 100 megawatt. OpenAI, with its target project mentioned above, is aiming for a 1000 megawatt training run soon. So this has led to some pretty strange ideas when it comes to building the data centers. Mark Zuckerberg recently ditched the data center design that Meta has perfected over the last decade and told his team to stick tens of thousands of chips in tents outside their data center in New Albany, Ohio. Each of these chips cost about $60,000. Zuckerberg plans to stick billions of dollars worth of them in the tent. That might sound crazy, but it's cutting the time to build the computing capacity in half. The first five buildings of Meta, New Albany, Ohio data centers took between 2 and 3 years to build. So Meta started building five 125,000 square foot tent between the April and June. According to the city permit, the company expect their Zuckerberg recently took to his platform the threat to set the center, which a company, the Prometheus, will be the largest in the world by the time they are done setting up came. Electricity utilities that have served the data centers are struggling to keep up. Between permits, interconnect studies, and construction, a typical solar, wind, or battery project takes about 5 years. The current backlog to buy a gas turbine stretched into early 2030s. Transmission line projects take about a decade. The gap in how long it takes to build data centers, or in some cases, GPU tents, and how long it takes to build the power infrastructure is one of the reasons why the utility APE Ohio was forced to pause all data centers interconnectionally. That pose threatens the growth of the Meta Prometheus project. So again, the company came up with the work around this time by eschewing the grid entirely. The company recently reviewed approval to build a 400 megawatt natural gas power plant next to each tent. Shortly afterward, they only increased the planned capacity of its on-site power plant to 700 megawatt. Prometheus could be the largest data center in the world next year, but Meta hopes that wouldn't be the case for long. In Louisiana, Meta is building a data center called Hyperion that will be twice as large as its Ohio data center. The floor space will be about half of the size of Lower Manhattan. The Hyperion data center over the Manhattan. At peak power, Hyperion will consume about half as much electricity as the entire city of New York. The project will be powered by 2 gigawatt combined cycle gas plant. Meta will pay for $3.2 billion of the gas plant and associated transmission infrastructure cost. Louisiana residents and businesses will have to pay $550 billion of the project cost. The $1 trillion question. How long the current data center built or out will continue is one of the most debated questions in America right now. In the last month alone, OpenAI announced deals with the chip makers to deploy 26 gigawatt of power-hungry GPU. Those chips and the infrastructure required to house them would require more than $1 trillion of investment. The company's CEO, Sam Altman, has told the investors that he wants to deploy 250 gigawatt of computing capacity by 2032. Absurd members like this have led just about everyone to suggest we might be in a massive AI bubble. OpenAI chairman Brett Taylor have even said we're probably in bubble. Figure 1. Web search The AI bubble peaked on August 21st, far exceeding the search's AI boom, crypto bubble, and crypto boom, a period shown November 30, 2022, and launch of ChatGPT to present. For everyone hoping that AI is in bubble, the historical record look bad, even if you assume the technology is transformational. As many have pointed out, railroads and the internet changed the world. They also wipe out the investors and companies along with the way producing two of the largest bubble in history. But sensing that the things feel frothy and calling the exact timing of the bubble peak are two different things entirely. Alan Greenspan delivered his famous irrational exuberance speech warning that stock market might be overvalued on December 5th, 1996. That month, the Nasdaq index hit 1,000. It would take another 3.5 years for index to peak at about 5,000 in March 2000. The current wave of the AI hype could grind to halt soon. Companies may be slow to integrate large language models into their workflows. The scaling laws that are recent progress has depended on which are very much not laws could stop working. But there's another possibility that I think everyone needs to be prepared for, a future in which these tech companies, with their easy and steady flows of profit, continuing to invest aggressively for years to come. In the future, the gigawatt scale data centers of 2025 might even look modest. See, I read this article these data centers are getting really, really big. Thank you for your time. See you next time.